Okay guys, I went ahead and opened up Adobe Illustrator. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do before I do anything is I'm going to click on View and I'm going to scroll down to Smart Guides. I'm going to make sure that Smart Guides is checked because we want this Smart Guides tool to be enabled. This Smart Guides will help us visually to align our paths together, because visually when you start to align two paths together, you'll have some pink lines that will light up to let you know that the two lines are exactly directly on top of each other. So it really does help. So let's go ahead and make sure that Smart Guides is enabled. And another thing I want to say is I'm not an expert on Adobe Illustrator. I've only been using it for about 1.5 years. And if I can make this thickness gauge, I know you can too. So let's go ahead and continue. Now I'm going to go ahead and select the rectangle tool, and I'm going to make a small little rectangle. And I want the rectangle size to be, I want the width to be 1.25, which is 1.25 inches. So let's type in 1.25 inches. And I want the height to be the measurement that we calculated for the base of the Glowforge to the top of the crumb tray measurement. And that came out to be 1.3425. But you're going to enter in the measurement that you calculated for your crumb tray height. So let's go ahead and type in that number, which is 1.3425 inches. So now we have our rectangle. So next, let's go ahead and copy this rectangle. So edit, copy, edit, paste, and let's paste this rectangle right over the top. And you can see how these guidelines, you see that pink line, that's letting us know that the two shapes are directly aligned together. So let's leave that for right now. Let's go ahead and change the fill color to these guys to no fill. So on this top rectangle, I want this top rectangle to represent the 1/2 inch engrave zone. So let's go ahead and bring this down and change it to 0.5 inches. And let's make sure that it is 0.5 inches. So now it is good. So let's go ahead and select both of these and let's set the stroke to 1 point for both of them. And now what I'm going to do, let me zoom in a bit. Okay, you're going to see the Smart Guides kick into play, and this is why it's so important to have the Smart Guides enabled. When you hover over a line, you can see a path line, and that path line is blue. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select the rectangle and I'm going to slowly start to slide it over, and you'll see when I get to the right placement, bam, right there you'll see that pink line light up. That is letting you know that the paths of both of these shapes are perfectly aligned. So let's go ahead and do that again. Let's go ahead and bring it over. Bam, perfectly aligned. So that's exactly what I want to do right there. Now these two shapes are perfectly aligned. So the next thing I want to do is select the top rectangle, and let's go ahead and do edit, copy, edit, paste. And now let's place this bad boy up on top, and I want this measurement to be 2 inches wide. So let's go ahead and change it to 2 inches for the width. And I want the height to be 0.6 inches. And you have that. And let's make sure that the stroke size is 1. Okay, so now all the stroke sizes are the same. So just like we did before, I'm going to zoom in on this. I'm going to bring this top rectangle and I'm going to line it up. You can see the Smart Guide lines kicking in. And I'm going to bring it down and wha-bam. So let's go ahead and continue. We now have the basic shape of our thickness gauge. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the tick marks. So let's enable the line segment tool and let's press and hold the shift button and let's make a line that is 0.15 inches. So let's make a line that is 0.15 inches. And there you go right there. So we have one line made. So now that we have one line made, we'll go ahead and select the selection tool again. And let's go ahead and copy that line. So edit, copy, edit, paste. So now we have another line. So what I want to do is I want to make 12 of these tick marks. So let's go ahead and select these two. Let's go to edit, copy, edit, paste. Now I have two more, and I'm not concerned about the spacing or anything right now. So now that I have four, let's select these four and let's copy, let's edit, paste. So now I have four more, and let's go ahead and paste another four more. So we're going to need a total of 12. So we have 12 right here. And notice they're not spaced or anything. So let's go ahead and select them all. Let's do a horizontal aligned left, and now they're all aligned to the left. But I want them to be aligned vertically 1/8 of an inch apart as well. And this is how you do that. Okay, let's go ahead and select them all, and let's go over to this align window over here. And there's 3 buttons on the bottom right corner of that align window, and let's open that up. And here you can see align to. You have 3 options, and let's go ahead and say align to key object. And it's going to align to the first tick mark. So let's click that, and when you click that, it opens up this little window here, and all you have to do is give it a measurement on how far apart you want these tick marks to be. So I'm going to type in 0.125 inches, which is 1/8 of an inch. And how do you want to space these, horizontally or vertically? Well, I want to do them vertical. So let's select vertical distribute space. So now I'm going to click this, but before I click it, take a look at the lines. So when I click it, bam, they all get spaced vertically 1/8 inch apart. That's great. So let's go ahead and continue. So let's go ahead and select all 12 of them, and let's change the stroke color from black to, let's make it magenta, because I want these to be seen differently in the Glowforge based on color, which means it'll be a different process. So now that we have them all magenta, let's go ahead and group these together. So now the 12 tick marks are grouped together. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to select this top tick mark, and that's going to be my guide to placing it on this top line there. Bam. And you can see when I zoom in how it aligns the paths with the Smart Guide tool. So let me zoom in real quick, and I'll give you a quick example. Click on it, and when you put it in place, you'll see the line light up, pink, bam, there it is right there. Now all of these lines are 1/8 of an inch apart, and you can see here that this 1/2 inch engrave zone has 4 1/8 inch divisions, and 4 times 1/8 is 0.5, which is 1/2 an inch. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select the group. I'm going to hold and press down the shift button as I click on the left arrow button until it lines up with the paths. So right there, we have our basic shape and design and our tick marks for our thickness gauge. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to click this guy, and I'm going to hold and press the shift button as I start moving it over out of the way with the right arrow button. So right there, they're out of the way. So we're going to be sliding this back later. So let's just move it out of the way, but let's make sure not to move any of this design over here, because these guys still have to slide into the same place. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and select the 2 bottom rectangles. I'm going to click on Pathfinder, and I'm going to click on Unite. And you can see that it united these 2 shapes and made it into one larger rectangle. So let's do the same thing for the top 2, and let's select them, click on Pathfinder, and click on Unite. So now we have the basic shape of our thickness gauge. So now let's just go ahead and click on this guy. Holding down the Shift button, slide the tick marks back into place by pressing the left arrow button until the paths line up. Bam, you can see how they aligned. Okay, so now we have our tick marks in position. So now let's go ahead and ungroup them, and we'll select this top one. We'll press and hold the Shift key and we'll slide it over until the paths align on the right. Bam, it aligned. And we're going to do the same thing for this fourth line from the top, and let's click and hold the Shift key and drag the anchor all the way across until it hits. Bam. Now we have one long line, another long line with ticks in the middle, and this area here is going to be our 1/2 inch engrave zone. So right there we basically have the shape of our tool. So one last thing we're going to do is we're going to select the line segment tool, and we're just going to make a line that at an angle. Okay, doesn't matter. Let's change the stroke color back to black, and you can place this pretty much wherever you want. Let's click the selection tool and let's slide it over a bit. And let's change the angle just a hair. And let's slide it right there. Bam. Okay, once again, let's select the direct selection tool. And let's go ahead and select the angled line in the top rectangle. And we'll get those together. And let me go ahead and zoom in. So direct selection tool, select these objects right here, and now we're going to click on the shape builder tool. So once we click on it, I'm going to press and hold the Alt button as I hover my cursor over the lines. And these lines are the lines that I do not want. So when I click on it, the line will be deleted. So let me zoom in a little closer so you can see right there. And with my shape builder tool still being selected, I'm going to click on Alt, and as I click on Alt, I'm going to hover over the line and it turns red, and when I click the left mouse button, bam, it gets deleted. And let's go ahead and do the same thing for this top line over here. Click and hold the Alt key and hover over and click it, it gets deleted. Now you can see right here that this corner and this corner are open. So we want to join those paths. So I simply bring the cursor down into the triangle or into the rectangle. And when I click on the gray area, you can see how it joined my paths together. So right there we have the basic shape of our tool. And the next thing I'm going to do is look at it, admire it, and let's go ahead and go on to the next step. Okay guys, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the stand that's going to allow this thickness gauge to stand on its own. That little stand is going to have a notch cut in it, and I'm also going to cut a notch on the bottom of the thickness gauge. When these two notches interlock, it's going to allow the thickness gauge to stand on its own. So let's go ahead and make that right now. Let's go ahead and click on Rectangle tool, and I'm going to make a rectangle. And I want this rectangle to be the same width as the thickness gauge. And we have already determined that measurement is 1.25 inches. So let's change the width of this rectangle to 1.25 inches. And I want the height of this rectangle to be 0.4. So let's go ahead and make that change right there. And there it is. Okay, so before we go any further, let's go ahead and select the selection tool, and let's move this over just to make sure that it fits. And according to the smart guides, it is a perfect fit. So let's go ahead and make our notch now. So we're going to go ahead and select the rectangle tool, and let's make a little rectangle. And the width of this notch has to be the same width as the thickness of the material that I'm going to cut this thickness gauge out of. And I already measured the thickness of the material I'm going to use, and it's 0.14 inches. So I want this notch to be 0.14 inches. So I'm going to enter that in, 0.14 inches. And we have that set. And now I want the height of this notch to be half of the height of this little rectangle here. So this rectangle here is 0.4 inches. So I want this rectangle to be 0.2 inches. So let's go ahead and type in 0.2 inches. And now we have the size of the notch. So let's go ahead and put that there. And let's go ahead and make sure that the stroke is 1 point on both of these. And I'm going to select both of them. And using my alignment tool, I'm going to go ahead and select vertical align bottom. And I'm going to now select horizontal align center. Where is that at? It's right there. Bam. Okay, so now it's center aligned and it's aligned on the bottom. So now that we have that done, let's go ahead and select both of them. Let's go ahead and group them. Once they're grouped, let's go ahead and copy them, do a copy, and let's do a paste because I'm going to need another copy of this. And you'll see why in a second. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get this piece here that's grouped. Let's enlarge it a little bit. And let's go ahead and position this and align it right there. You can see with the smart guidelines that it's aligned center and on the bottom. So there we go there. So now that we have it positioned, let's go ahead and select it. Let's go ahead and ungroup it. Let's select the big rectangle and let's go ahead and delete it. So now that's gone. And now we're going to want to use our shape builder tool. So let's go ahead and select direct selection tool. Let's select this area here, the small rectangle and the larger rectangle. Let's click on shape builder tool. And now I'm going to press and hold the Alt button as I hover over the line that I want to delete. So now you can see as I hovered over it, it turned red. And I'm going to click the left mouse button and it now deletes that line. So now if I hover over and change this area to gray, if I click on it, you're going to notice, let's go ahead and zoom in a bit, these two corners here, it's going to close the path. So let's go ahead and click there. And now it's joined the paths together, which is a good thing. It's going to make cutting one easy step. Okay, so now that that's done, let's concentrate on our little stand. So let's click on the selection tool and let's bring that down here. And this is what I'm going to do here. Let's go ahead and ungroup it. And now that it's ungrouped, I want to make this little rectangle align to the top of it because we want it on the top. So let's go over here to align, vertical align top. And let's do that. And now it's on the top. So now that that's done, we're going to change the width of this notch because I want the notch, the two notches to fit snugly. This little area here, it's going to fit freely, but I want to change the width of this one to adjust for the curve so that in one direction, it's a tighter fit. So let's go ahead and change that from 0.14 to 0.13. Bam, and it makes it just a little bit smaller. And so when it pushes in, it's going to fit tightly on this side, whereas on the other notch, it's going to have a little bit more room to push in. But it's going to hold this rectangle in place. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and click on the direct selection tool. Click on that there. Click on the shape builder tool, and let's do the same thing that we did earlier. Let's press and hold the Alt button. As I hover over the line turns red. Let's click it, bam. And you can see these two areas here are not joined. So if I hover over here and click, bam, these two areas are joined now. So now this piece here, let's go ahead and select our selection tool. This piece here is going to slide in just like that, bam. It's going to fit perfectly. And you can see when I zoom in, one's just a tad bit smaller than the other, but it's gonna fit like a glove, and we're gonna like that when it's all said and done. So right there, we're almost done. So let's zoom in a bit. Let's bring that over. Bam. Just like that. So now we're ready to go on to the next step. Okay guys, before I go any further, I want to change the line color from black to red because I'm going to want the Glowforge to cut these shapes out. So let's go ahead and change the line color to red. So let's select this shape here. Let's go to stroke and let's change the line color to red. And now let's go ahead and select this shape and select stroke, and now we'll change the color from black to red. And now when I create my SVG file and load it into the Glowforge, it'll see the red lines as cut processes. So now that we got that done, let's go ahead and add some information to this thickness gauge. Okay, now I'm going to click on Type Tool. I'm going to click on the artboard, and now it's going to let me start typing. So I'm going to click 0.5 inches. I'm going to click on the selection tool. And now I'm going to drag this into our 1/2 inch engrave zone, and I'm going to select the type tool once again, click on the artboard, and I'm going to type in engrave zone, and it is centered already, and I'm going to move this over into our engrave zone. Now that looks like it's a little bit too big, so let me go ahead and select that. I'm going to press and hold the Shift and the Alt at the same time. I'm going to drag it right here by this corner, and I'm going to drag it down a little bit to change the font size. I'm going to position it to where I like it, and that's good enough right there. Whatever looks good to you, and this looks good to me, so I'm going to keep it. Okay guys, so if I was to enter this into the Glowforge right now, it would not recognize this text in the Glowforge. We have to convert this editable text to a language that the Glowforge understands, and that's vector format. And the way you can do that is you select it, and you have to create outlines. And when you create outlines, that changes it to a language the Glowforge can understand. So now that this is selected, let's go ahead and select Type and Create Outlines. And you can see now that it created outlines around this. So now that it created outlines, let's go ahead and change the fill color to blue. And now when you enter this into the Glowforge, it's going to see this, and it's going to engrave these letters right here. So that's what I want. So let's go with that. Let's go ahead and do the same thing with the 0.5 inch, and let's change that to vector format or create outlines. So we create outlines, and now that the outlines are created, we'll go to fill, and we'll change this to blue, and that looks really good right there. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to design an arrow on this thickness gauge. So let's go ahead and select the line tool, and let's go ahead and press and hold the Shift button, and let's drag a line right here. All right, we have a line right there. So I want arrows on both sides of this line. So I'm going to select my stroke window, and let's drag it over here so you can get a better idea of what I'm doing. Okay, we have here arrowhead options, and this left one will put an arrowhead on the top, the right one will put an arrowhead on the bottom. So let's go ahead and select down arrow, and let's select the arrowhead that I would like. Okay, I'm going to select arrowhead 5, and it puts an arrowhead on the top. Well, it's a little bit too big, so I'm going to click on scale, and I'm going to down arrow until I get to 60. All right, that's good right there. Okay, let's do the same thing for the other side. Let's select arrow number 5, and let's scale it down to 60% to match the other one. Okay, so now they're the same. So we can remove this and put it aside, and let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit so you can see a little better what I'm going to do next. So now if I click on the line, you see a blue line going down the center, but you don't see any blue lines going around the arrows. So I just want to make sure that I expand the appearance of the line to incorporate the arrows I just attached. So if we click on Object, we're going to expand the appearance of the line. So now the outline is now around the arrowheads by expanding the appearance of the line. So now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and select it once more. And we'll go ahead and we will say expand it, say OK, and now it expanded the line. And you can see that because if we remove the fill color, you can see three different shapes. You see one arrow, and the line. So let's go ahead and fill it back up. And now we will say we want to ungroup it. And now that it's ungrouped, we now have three different shapes and the line. So let's go ahead and undo that, put them all back together, and let's select all the shapes. And we want to unite these shapes so it can become one solid shape. So let's go ahead and go to Pathfinder, click on Unite, and now you can see it's one solid shape. So let me remove the fill color. You can see that it's one solid shape. Let's go back and set the color now to blue, which will mean that the Glowforge will see it as an engraved process. So that wasn't too hard to make an arrow. So now what we're going to do, let's go ahead and hit our direct selection tool. Let's zoom out a bit. And now I'm going to put it into fast forward and finish adding all the information to this gauge using all the steps and procedures that I did for the engrave zone area. See you in a few seconds. Okay guys, I'm pretty much done with this design. So everything that you see that is blue will be engraved, everything that is magenta will be scored, and of course the red lines are going to be cut. So let's go ahead and save this as an SVG file and load it into the Glowforge, and let's go ahead and cut this baby out. Okay guys, this wraps up another project. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Until my next project, I hope you have a blessed day and God bless. See you then.